The audit report that I am showing in this chapter is the outcome that I was specifically asked to develop by my coworkers, my internal customers, who were the head of my department, my company's statistical team leader, and the consultant teams that reported data to the client. Keep in mind that while this audit report is the only item requested, the back infrastructure development required to produce it was significant. The report was only possible through my reinvention of the entire back-end operations for the product. So in addition to the creation of the audit report itself, it necessitated creation of new standard operating procedure that I touched on 2 chapters ago, new processing procedures that I walked through in the last chapter, and a new database. The new database included tables, first for benchmark data, second for client-specific data related to code normalization, contracted cohorts, relevant contractual data for the client's company and their account managers, payer information, and authentication data, third for the product data overall, such as cohort definitions, clinical indicator definitions, and complication definitions. Fourth, for processing data such as audits and error and processing logs and indicators. Fifth, for hospital aggregate data. Sixth, for client-patient medical and billing data such as patient demographics, diagnoses, procedures, revenue codes, and rooms. Seventh, for physician detail and aggregate data, and physician group and physician specialty aggregate data. Eighth, for archived and rejected data. And ninth, for statistical calculation data. Now, here's the audit report that I created that eliminated errors in the data reported to the client. It has a header that reports the client whose data is being processed, the data receipt date, date range, load date, account manager loading the data, and summary information about the load, including relevant case counts and a summary of exclusions and rejections by cohort for those cohorts that are contracted by that client in particular. Following this introductory information, specific exclusion, rejection, and warning audits are listed by cohort, and the percentage and number of records applicable to each audit are noted. First, exclusion audits are listed. These have to do with my company's specific rules for what is and is not to be included in a cohort. These cases are not errors, but there is a good reason for them to be excluded from the case study, such as a patient leaving against medical advice, being transferred to another hospital or not yet discharged, or the patient was an outlier, such as a minor having a valve replacement surgery. Second are the rejection audits, which are erroneous data, such as duplicate patients within one submission. Third are the warning audits. These are not necessarily a problem, but they have the potential to be a problem. Subsequently, they must be checked by the account manager to confirm that the warnings do not indicate erroneous data. Following the cohort audits, there is a physician specialty report. This lists the physician specialty by cohort. This is valuable to check that the physicians that we have in the data make sense according to the procedure or diagnosis. This report could show an obviously erroneous assignment of physicians in the data if, for example, cardiac surgeons were performing total knee replacements. Then there is a code distribution report that gives an overview of the data demographics. The account manager reviews this report in order to check that the demographic data is as expected and that data have not been erroneously mapped. Then there is the case count summary listed for each client's contracted cohort. This summary is valuable to check that the data that we receive from the client for the current load is reasonable when compared to averages on a larger scale and when compared to the client's data over time. First, in the summary, there is a comparison of the client data to outside data sources of MedPAR data and state data if present. Then counts are presented for total volume, Medicare risk, actual mortalities of total volume, Medicare and Medicare risk, and exclusions and rejections. These are shown alongside the national benchmark data counts and the client's historical load data counts. Then these same counts are broken out by time period, both presented monthly and quarterly, so that the account manager may identify that if present, problems are isolated to a particular time period only or throughout the entire data set. Notice that this case count summary is uniformly formatted. This allows the account manager to quickly and easily browse this section as problems present themselves clearly and prominently. Finally, there are appendix reports. Not all appendix reports are applicable for every load. Therefore, only the applicable reports are printed. The first appendix report, which is not applicable here and therefore not shown here, lists missing physician data. The second, third, and fourth appendix reports apply to the exclusion, rejection, and warning audits and list the actual field values that are the reasons for the audit listed. For each itemized audit, the corresponding case count and percentage is given. In summary, this audit report in its entirety incorporates all enhancements requests made by key stakeholders. On average, a report is between 20 to 30 pages and has a significant amount of detail. It is used as a reference document. There are main sections that the account manager may review in every audit where they can quickly and easily identify if there is or is not a problem in the data. If they find that there are issues that require a more detailed review, then they may reference the more detailed audit sections to research the issues further. So just as one would with a reference guide, they will only reference certain sections in the audit on an as-needed basis. I developed this exhaustive audit and all of the necessary infrastructure to support it, which included standard operating procedure, new processing procedures, and a new database. It is a significant and valuable accomplishment in terms of having a tool that easily and efficiently identifies data issues and that results in having good data integrity in the company's product deliverables. When I began with the company, data processing averaged 8 hours and 80% of the data delivered to clients contained errors. The outcome of my work was reduction of data processing time from 8 hours to 30 minutes and 100% elimination of errors in the data so that there were 0 errors delivered to clients.